Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to do a simple note-taking app for a single user using the JavaBridge library for Android. Basically, we're going to build an app that allows a single user to create a note, store it on their phone, and then retrieve all the previous notes to reread. This tutorial is an introduction to the TinyDB, which is a key value style data storage object. In this case, the key is the title of the note, which we use to retrieve the value, which is the note itself. So let's get started. I'm just going to create a new Android application, and I'm going to call it Note Taker Single Tutorial. And it's recommended that the package name be something unique, so I'm going to call this com.tutorials.notetaker single. And I'm going to be running this on Android 2.2. We don't have a custom launcher icon, so let's go ahead and get the blank activity created. I'm going to leave all those as the default values and hit finish. So if we were going to be writing a normal Android app, we would start out with this user interface, but since we're using JavaBridge, actually this is all going to be done programmatically. So I'm going to open up the main activity, and again, this is all added automatically, assuming that we're going to be doing a normal Android application, but we don't need any of this. The first step, then, is to add the library that we're going to be using, which is the Android JavaBridge, so go ahead and drag that over to your libs folder, and then add it to the build path. So this is going to allow us to use all of the JavaBridge classes. So first, instead of extending activity, we're going to be extending form, and we're going to have to import that. And so let's think about our user interface. For the app to function the way we want it to, there are a few key objects we need in the user interface. We'll need a text box for entering the note. We'll need two buttons, one to send the note and one to retrieve all the notes. And finally, we're going to need a label to display all available notes. So here I'm going to declare all of my UI variables. So text box and label are both just standard JavaBridge class types, so we'll be able to import those right off the bat. Send button and retrieve button are going to give us a little bit of trouble because these are custom classes that we are going to implement as subclasses of the general standard button class. And what that means is we are going to extend the button class to add our own functionality since we want different things to happen when we send and when we retrieve. Something that we're going to need to add that isn't a UI object is our TinyDB. So I'm going to go ahead and declare that here too, as well as a count, which I'm just going to use to keep track of how many notes we've created, and I'm going to use that for the titles of the notes. So in order for all of these objects to appear on the screen, they have to be initialized. And like the method you saw before, if we were going to be using the normal Android SDK, that would happen in onCreate. But since we're using JavaBridge, that's going to happen in a method called define. And this is essentially where we define and initialize everything. So count is going to start out at 0. we're going to create a new TinyDB. A new note box. And new buttons. And finally, we're going to create a new note label. And we're just going to start out having that be empty. And so once again, it's yelling at us for these submit button and retrieve buttons because there isn't actually anything yet to import. So let's do that next, just to create a skeleton so that we can take a look and see what our app looks like so far. To get these sort of class skeletons going, I'm just going to create my send button class. And that's going to be extending the regular button class. And then I'm going to have my retrieve button that also extends button. And now I need to import button. And also just add the constructors. This is the way that we tell Java how to build the object. And I just realized that I wrote submit for these. Oops. So now we have everything created. Nothing is actually functional yet, but let's just go ahead and see how this looks when we run it. So now we've got our app launched with a text box and 2 buttons that are currently empty. None of them are functional yet, but you can see that this is how it's going to look once it's done. In the next video, we'll get all this stuff wired up and we can see our app in action.